Hello, this is Timothy Joseph with Criminal Behaviorology. I'm here in Chicago, maybe a little bright outside, I don't know, from the angle we're at. However, I had not made a podcast in a while, and I want to make one now, and it's in time for Halloween. And I'm glad you're joining again. If you are interested in helping out the podcast, I'm sure you hear of these things frequently. Um, Perhaps you'd like to just kind of check out the Patreon channel. Here it is for us. We've got the podcasts are broadcast, but if you want to help us out, I'll also put the link into the description for those on Spotify or other audio podcasts, or on YouTube or Rumble. You'll have it there as well. That's enough of my sales pitch. I'm going to go ahead and talk about something special for Halloween. And I know that we'd had some Halloween specials before. We covered some good material, I thought. And we continue with some of the realities of crime and psychology and behavior analysis. And from the History Channel website from last year, author Aaron Blakemore, How Americans Became Convinced Their Halloween Candy Was Poisoned. And the little description, it says, while the fears may be overblown, Halloween crimes, including poison, have in fact occurred. This was originally published October 16th, 2017, did a little update last year. Okay, rumors of tainted or poisoned or otherwise murderous Halloween candy handed out to unsuspecting youngsters are as much a part of the Halloween tradition as costumes and sing-song pleas for sweets. The myth goes like this: no kid is safe on October 31st, because psychotic murderers may hand out tainted treats to trick-or-treating children. But is poisoned Halloween candy a terrifying threat or an urban legend? Most, if not all, reports of Halloween sadism are questionable, of a questionable authenticity, writes sociologist and criminal justice experts Joel Best and Gerald Horiuchi. When conducting an extensive study on so-called Halloween sadism, or crimes specifically committed using Halloween treats or customs, they concluded that the threat is greatly exaggerated. Though both parents and kids are taught to be on the alert for tampered with sweets, most of the cases of researchers analyzed were either overstated or could not be linked to Halloween itself. Best and Horiuchi suggested that fears of Halloween sadism rise during fearful times. For example, paranoia about tainted candy spiked in the early 1980s after a rash of Tylenol poisonings. I'm old enough to remember that. It's a very interesting time. And I might do a special on that as well. That's just the Tylenol poisonings. It's a great story. And in this case, which cyanide-laced acetaminophen was placed on store shelves and sold, the high-profile crime led to the introduction of child-proof containers. It's a mainstay now. That's where it comes from. It used to be you could just go in the store, open all those containers of food, medicine, everything, just open it right up. And tough federal laws aimed at punishing those who tamper with drugs. After the Tylenol murders, which are still unsolved, warnings about adulterated Halloween candy increased. While the fears may be overblown, Halloween crimes involving poison have occurred. In 1964, for example, a New York woman named Helen Feel was arrested for handing out things like ant poison and dog biscuits to kids. When questioned, the housewife said that she was joking and she gave the items to kids she felt were too old to be trick-or-treating. Though no children were poisoned during the incident, law enforcement didn't find her actions very funny. Most infamous Halloween poisoning took place on Halloween 1974. That's when a Texas man named Ronald O'Brien gave cyanide-laced pixie sticks to 5 children, including his own son. The other children never ate the candy. However, his son did, and died soon afterwards. O'Brien put the cyanide in the candy. Investigators learned that O'Brien had recently taken life insurance policies out on his children. He was convinced of murder and executed via lethal injection in 1984. Though it's been decades since the crime, the Candyman murder still looms large in the memories of parents on Halloween. As you know, O'Brien's attorney told the American Statesman in 2009, "My client was convicted of killing Halloween." Okay. But regardless of how horrific O'Brien's crime, it was no random act of Halloween havoc, since it was aimed directly at his children and their friends, not at trick-or-treaters. Perhaps because of O'Brien's notoriety, parents can still be skittish when it comes to Halloween candy. Authorities can be too, despite the fact that rumors of randomly distributed poison candy or threats like apples that contain razor blades, I used to hear that when I trick-or-treated, are nothing more than urban legends. For example, when a 7-year-old California girl collapsed while trick-or-treating on Halloween 1990, Santa Monica police confiscated kids' candy. However, her illness was later discovered to be caused by a heart murmur, and when examined, she showed no sign of poisoning. Excuse me. The U.S. doesn't have a monopoly on poison candy horror stories. In the 1980s, a crime ring called the Mystery Man with 21 faces blackmailed Japanese candy companies with threats that it would lace their candy with cyanide if they didn't offer large ransoms. I think Japan has some of the most interesting, and here in the western part of the world, little recognized criminal cases. I could do a show on some interesting Japanese cases, and probably from other countries as well. But at first it seemed just like a threat, and stores pulled large amounts of candy from store shelves to only find that it was not poisoned. The blackmailers struck again a few months later. This time their threats were in earnest. Packs of cookies and candies laced with cyanide were discovered on store shelves in central Japan. Fortunately, no one died from the poison, though the chief of Shigai Prefecture Police Department eventually killed himself because of his failure to stop the poisoning ring. Who committed Japan's candy crimes? We may never know. The perpetrators still haven't been found, even after 125,000 investigations by Japanese police. For those hoping to minimize the risk, trunk-or-treating has surged in popularity as a potential safer alternative to door-to-door trick-or-treating, particularly in rural communities. We had one in this area. During a trunk-or-treat event, also known as Halloween tailgating, parents and guardians drive to a location. Then they transform their car trunks into Halloween displays, and children trick-or-treat at each display in a controlled, supervised setting. Well, okay, I'm not sure even that is going to be completely free of risk itself, and that's fine, by the way, to take these kinds of actions for Halloween. to keep people safe. But I don't know that I don't know we should be driven by fear in that way. I think there's consequences to that as well. However, safety first, I do understand that, and there's nothing wrong with these kinds of trunk or treat events if you want to enjoy them. So very good. However, this case of the Japanese crime ring, I feel the need to cover this in brief. The 1980s crime ring that poisoned Japan's candy and never got caught, that we just spoke about earlier. The mystery man with 21 faces mocked the police ruthlessly and stocked Japan's supermarkets with cyanide-filled candy. To this day, no one knows who they were. This was in October 2016 by Kara Giamo. This was 31 Days of Halloween publication by everyone. By now, everyone knows there's no such thing as poisoned Halloween candy. Well, I believed it once. No chemically laced chewing gum, no razor blades hidden in caramel apples. Researchers have spent years debunking this urban legend, which they say was born from a certain strain of cultural anxiety, fear of strangers, of uncertainty of too much sugar. There is that danger. Almost certainly the cruelest thing a neighbor will do to your trick-or-treating event is hand them a toothbrush. But years ago, 30 years ago, across much of Japan, this irrational, deep-seated fear actually came true. Over the course of a year and a half, a cryptic group blackmailed the country's biggest candy companies. They filled supermarket shelves with cyanide-laced chocolates. They wrote elaborate teasing letters detailing their exploits, which were published in national newspapers. They consistently foiled the nation's police force. And to this day, no one has any idea who they were. They called themselves the Mystery Man with 21 Faces. And they replaced the whole country's sugar high with a rush of terror. On March 18th, 1984, Kata Suasiya Izaki came home from a long day at the office and took off his suit and sunk into a warm bath. Izaki was coming up on 2 years as president of Izaki Glico, a multi-million-dollar corporation based in Osaka. The company sold everything from ice cream to hamburger meat, but was most famous for his sweets. Some type of puddings, Pocky chocolate, and Gilco caramels made with health-boosting oyster glycogen. Izaki had only been soaking for a few minutes when he heard a brief commotion elsewhere in the house. Suddenly, two armed hooded men burst into the bathroom and began dragging him out of the tub. That sounds like the Big Lebowski or something. Izaki cried for help, but his assailants were 2 steps ahead of him. They had already tied up Izaki's wife and daughter and cut the house phone lines, and they had even broken into the house next door where his mother lived and tied her up too. The men muscled Izaki out of the door, gave him a coat and a ski hat, and brought him to an isolated anonymous warehouse. The next day, the police scrounged for some sign of their whereabouts. A ransom note was found in a nearby phone booth demanding $1 billion yen. That's about $4.3 million US dollars. And 220 pounds of gold bullion. Detectives were just starting to chase down leads when, after 2 days in captivity, Izaki managed to escape his warehouse prison. Everyone hoped that the perpetrators would be caught. That would be the end of it. It wasn't. It was only the beginning. 3 weeks later, the newspaper offices across Japan received copies of a strange letter. To the stupid police, it began. Are you idiots? If you were pros, you would catch us because you guys have such a high handicap. We're going to give you some hints. The letter went on to give more detail about the crime. The getaway car was gray. The food they purchased was from Dia Supermarket, one of the largest chains in Japan. Should we also kidnap the head of the prefectural police? It wondered. The missive was signed Kaijin. I won't go all over that pronunciation, which translates roughly to the mystery man with 21 faces. The newspapers published the letter. Over the next few months, they published its follow-ups too. There were dozens of them filled with taunts, jokes, and more useless clues. Some served mostly to goad the police, while others revealed the further potential crimes. In one sent in mid-May, the gang alleged they had laced several packages of Glico candy with cyanide. They didn't specify which kind. Glico immediately recalled all of its candy, which tested negative for cyanide, but they couldn't rescue their reputation. The frightened citizens of Japan engaged in de facto Glico boycott. Typical of the nationwide concern was a Tokyo office worker who gave her colleagues a gift of chocolates attached to a reassuring note that another candy maker had produced them, wrote the New York Times. The company's assets plunged, and they had to lay off 1,000 workers. While Glico's reputation foundered, its media-savvy tormentors grew more and more infamous. As anthropologist Marilyn Ivy explains, in Tracking the Mystery Man with 21 Faces, the gang named themselves after the mystery man with 20 faces, a villainous shape-shifting thief invented by popular detective novelist Eduardo Rampo. In every neighborhood and in every house where two or more people gathered, Eduardo wrote, introducing the character, they talk about the mystery man with 20 faces just as naturally as they would talk about the weather. This new gang of mystery man also captured the public imagination, even as they themselves evaded capture. Their letters and tactics were theatrical and morbidly fascinating. They would demand huge amounts of cash and then fail to turn up to collect it. There's no evidence that they ever accepted any money. Once they instructed Glico employees to appear at a particular phone booth at a certain time to await a message, but when disguised police showed up, instead they didn't call. You thought you could fool us dressed up in your nice businessmen's blue suits, acting like salarymen, they wrote the next day. Those shifty eyes gave you away. Somehow they had been watching. You do not recall a case in which criminals made such fools of the police, a Japanese newspaper wrote in an editorial. Their letters were also in a dialectic associated with Osaka, Japan's third largest city, which is seen as an unpretentious anti-capital. Compared with the formality of standard Japanese, says Ivy, Osaka slang left room for warmth, sincerity, and humor. The city has been associated with comedy for more than 1,000 years, and many of Japan's most well-known comedians hail from Osaka. By writing in this dialect, the authors displaced the often murderous intent of their words into the realm of the lucid, she writes. In other words, when Japanese citizens opened their papers and read the latest threat from the mystery man with 21 faces, a certain subtext also got across. Why so serious? In June of 1984, a letter addressed to our fans throughout Japan, the mystery man announced that they would lay off Glico. The president of Glico has already gone around with his head hanging down long enough, they wrote. We would like to forgive him. They also got in a few jabs at the candy company. In our group, there's also a 4-year-old kid. Every day he cries for Glico. It's a drag to make a kid cry because he's deprived of the candy he loves. And the police have done a good job. Hang in there. Don't give up. Finally, they made a promise. Japan has gotten terribly hot and humid, they asserted. So when our work is done, we want to go to Europe, Geneva, Paris, London. We'll be in one of those places. We'll bring Pocky, the traveler's friend, delicious Glico products. We're eating them too. See you in January of next year. But the mystery man returned long before that. In September, they called up Morinaga, another long-standing candy company, and demanded $400,000. Morinaga didn't comply, so on October 8th of 1984, Japan's newspaper got yet another letter to moms throughout Japan. In autumn, when appetites are strong, sweets are really delicious. When you think sweets, no matter what you say, it's Morinaga. We've added some special flavor. The flavor of potassium cyanide is a little bitter. It won't cause tooth decay, so buy the sweets for your kids. We've attached a notice on the bitter sweets that they contain poison. We've put 20 boxes in stores from Hakata to Tokyo. Police swarmed grocery stores in and around the cities of Kyoto. I've been there. Osaka, Kobe, and Tokyo. I've been there, scouring shelves for poison candy. Sure enough, they found boxes of Morinaga choco balls and angel pies with extra labels. Danger, contains poison. You'll die if you eat this. The mystery man with 21 faces. This time, the candy actually did test positive for cyanide. Immediately, Morinaga's stock dropped 22 cents. Further letters promised that if supermarkets didn't immediately begin boycotting Morinaga, future boxes would appear. This time, unlabeled. It's going to be like a treasure hunt, the mystery man said. Mystery man's spokesman, I suppose. The police mobilized like never before. Noting that the mystery man tended to strike on Saturdays and Sundays, 40,000 officers, 20% of Japan's entire force, spent several weekends in a row staking out supermarkets. They pored over surveillance video from one of the grocery stores, which showed a man with curly hair, a baseball cap, and glasses places something on a shelf. They traced the provenance of the typewriter which the letters were written. They released audio from the blackmailing telephone calls to Morinaga, which featured a woman and a child demanding money. He even set up special phone lines so people could call in and listen to it. But every lead went cold and led to more mockery. Isn't the man in the video a splendid chap? One follow-up letter read, before comparing his appearance to several well-known police captains. After a failed stakeout, Shiga Prefecture yielded a full range of strange equipment, a vacuum cleaner, a floppy hat, wire cutters. The mystery man with 21 faces wrote again, promising you won't be able to trace us from anything we leave behind. They kept demanding money from candy companies, 100 million yen from Fujiyoya Company, 50 million from Suragaya. In October of 1985, Shoji Yamamoto, the head of Shiga Prefecture Police, who blamed himself and his subordinates for failing to capture the mystery man during the stakeout, doused his body with kerosene and lit himself on fire. This was too much even for the mystery man. 5 days later, they sent out their first letter. No career, Yamamoto died like a man, it read in part. So we decided to give our condolence. We decided to forget about torturing food-making companies. We are bad guys. That means we've got more to do other than bullying companies. It's fun to lead a bad man's life. Mystery man with 21 faces. With that, they disappeared. Over the next few years, police continued to search for clues and to haul in suspects. Some leads pointed to the infamous Yakuza mobs. Others suggested extreme left-wing or right-wing groups or North Korean communists. All told, the police investigated about 125,000 people and followed up 28,300 public tips, but nothing illuminating was found, and everyone's alibis checked out. In 1995, the statute of limitations ran out on Izaki's kidnapping. In 2000, it expired on the poison candy case. As Michael Newton notes in the Encyclopedia of Unsolved Crimes, I think I have that book. Even if identified today, the mystery man with 21 faces and his various accomplices would not be charged or tried. And so their 21 faces still intact. The mystery man lives on in minds that recall their missives, in hands that hesitate before reaching for a piece of paki, whatever that is, because they could be anyone. they're everyone. Because they could strike anywhere, they're everywhere. As they themselves wrote in one letter midway through their reign of terror, who are we? Sometimes a policeman, sometimes a violent gang, sometimes a factory hand, sometimes a kidnapper. But our true identity is the mystery man with 21 faces. Wow, what a story. These urban legends, if that happened in America, I can't imagine. But if we're talking urban legends, this is an article, Urban Legends, Diffusion of Processes and the Exchange of Resources. In the abstract, it writes, in this research, urban legends are viewed as diffusing through consumer environment as part of a resource exchange process. Using the 3M model to develop categories of analysis, a Goutam analysis of 100 urban legends was conducted. 3 categories of variables were coded. The resource types depicted as exchanged in the stories, whether the resources were gained or lost, or whether the resources were gained or lost before or after the ironic twist. Results of this descriptive study supported the research question of a 3-way interaction among the variables. Results are discussed from perspective identifying the motivational factors that influence consumers to communicate urban legends, rumors, and product information. This is kind of a complicated article, but I included because of I think these urban legends are reinforced by elements in the environment, probably for a good reason, to protect us and to get out information. This is we evolved before internet searching, so the possibility of danger is spread far and wide, and of course it gets distorted. They provide a little summary, executive summary for implications for managers and executives. Urban legends defined. Urban legends are fictional folk narratives that contain a plot, are told over a considerable time period, and use an ironic twist to warn consumers of dangers. The ironic twist gets a situation in which the poetic justice occurs and the protagonist gets his or her last desserts. 2 examples of urban legends. One example is a woman approached a supermarket car to sniff a bottle of perfume allegedly worth $49, but being sold for only $8. The perfume turns out to be a substance whose fumes can cause people to black out. When the woman awakens, she discovers that her car has been moved to another parking area and her wallet containing $800 has been stolen. It's a scam. Another is the infamous microwave poodle story, in which a woman who has given her poodle to a bath decides to put it in the microwave to oven to dry it off more quickly and to prevent it catching cold. Our legends deal with current issues. Urban legends change as society changes. In the 1950s, a popular urban legend described a teenager who almost lost her life to an escaped prisoner while necking in a car. And in a recent legend, it sounds like the slasher movies. In a recent legend, a teenager discovers that her cyber sex partner is really her father. In both cases, the object of the negative behavior is the new use of a technology, the car or the internet, for sexual experimentation. Probably has kind of a moral element to it. Legends gain credibility in part by dealing with such current issues. The way of spreading urban legends is also changing. They were traditionally spread through word of mouth. In the internet area, they can reach hundreds of thousands of people in minutes. Very important change. The importance of urban legends for marketers. Urban legends frequently involve brand name products and are preach against the hazards of technology and consumer misbehavior. Marketers therefore need to understand their content and the reasons that consumers pass them on. Some marketers have become so skilled at this that they even use urban legends as storylines for commercials. An analysis of urban legends, Donavan et al. Use a 3M model of motivation and personality to develop categories of analysis of urban legends. 3 categories of variables are coded for 100 urban legend studied. 1, the different types of resources, physical, social, material, or information that are pursued in the stories. Which of the resources are, from the central character's point of view, gained or lost, and whether the resources are gained or lost before or after the ironic twist. The research reveals a 3-way interaction among the resources pursued, the resources gained or lost, and the timing of the gain or the loss. The research also reveals that resources are more frequently lost after the twist than before. The main character tends to be seeking to gain physical, social, or material resources before or after the twist. After the twist, however, an information gain tends to take place, and one or more of the other resources is lost. Why people share urban legends. The motivation to share urban legends, therefore, seem likely to result from an attempt to provide warnings about behaviors to avoid. In return, the teller of the legend might expect to be more positively regarded by the person to whom the legend is told. The characters portrayed in urban legends tend to pay a price for their greed, lust, drunkenness, or other human imperfections, a moral to the story. In other words, legends are less likely to be spread when their central character has an altruistic goal and the character gains by his or her behavior. This is Urban Legends, Diffusion of Processes and the Exchange of Resources by Donavan, Mowen, and Chakraborty are the authors. That put the link in there. Journal of Consumer Marketing 2001. Well, I was just at a conference here in Chicago, a little bit about theory and philosophy of behavior analysis. And one of the things that really is how far along AI technology has gone. And they can even take some of these papers, they put them into an AI technology software and make a podcast. They'll have people talking about the papers. So with this kind of, and it sounds legitimate. It sounds very good. They're going to take my job. I mean, the AI is going to take every job. So with this kind of technology, I just wonder what the effects of something like urban legends would be. Before we have certain gatekeepers, authority of information, even though rumors can spread wild stories, it was always dangerous. But what the future holds with this kind of technology appearing as legitimate sources, I can only imagine. So that is maybe a scary note for this Halloween. But have a safe Halloween. Enjoy yourselves, and we'll have future podcasts. Bye for now.